Hey guys, Richard here with Alien Bros. Today I have two things to share with you. First of which is some new evidence and theories on a story which most of you have probably already heard before, but for those of you that haven't, I will tell you the story. On a cold morning in November of 1980 in Todmorden, West Yorkshire, a police chief by the name of Alan Godfrey was on duty and had been sent out to locate some loose cattle. However, he instead ended up tracking down something he insists was completely out of this world. To put it bluntly, he saw what he claims was a flying saucer on Burnley Road. Mr. Godfrey lost about 15 minutes of time, and to this day, after having undergone aggressive hypnotherapy, claims that he was abducted by the alien occupants of the said flying saucer. At the time he was interviewed on primetime TV news shows, and still to this day, it remains the UK's best-known alien abduction account, hence why I said most of you have probably heard it before. Now, here is where the new so-called findings come in. A UFO researcher named Russ Callahan claims he has a more earthly explanation for what happened to Officer Godfrey on that night in 1980. Now, before I go on, I think it's important to point out that Godfrey actually started to draw the craft when he saw it, and still to this day has the sketch. This was taken immediately at the site where he had the sighting, while he was looking at the craft. You're actually looking at it right now. I would also like to point out why Officer Godfrey's story is so popular. Well, it's because he's a police officer, and a highly credible one at that. This was a man who thought people who saw UFOs were crazy. Not to mention, he was a trained observer. Did I also mention he was a police officer? No? Well, there you go. Okay, so before I get into the new theory of what he saw, let me give you Officer Godfrey's description of the craft. He said he saw, and I quote, a metallic disc with a dome and a row of windows at the top. He also claims that moments later, as he tried to sketch it, there was a burst of light and he found himself driving 100 yards further up the road with the UFO now gone. Now, I have to say I see no reason to not trust this man's word, and before I really start spilling my thoughts on this, let me tell you about the UFO researcher Russ Callahan's little theory. Callahan managed to dig up some info where he found out that in 1971, there had been a UFO-inspired Futura home in Todmorden, and it was still there in 1980. The plastic-built home resembled a UFO, with several large windows around it on the top half. What's more, the building was mobile and transported around town on the back of a truck. Mr. Callahan's theory is it would have been dark at the time of the sighting, and it could have been the Futura home being moved on the truck that Godfrey saw, and he mistook it for an alien craft. Mr. Callahan also says Alan Godfrey is a great guy, and I know he believes what he said he saw. I'm not saying Alan made this up. However, he said it was a plausible theory that further up the road the Futura building was being carried on a lorry, making it appear to be above the road. He said that is how they moved the building. Does it or does it not look like a flying saucer? The Futura buildings were small livable houses, but the documentary makers about Alan Godfrey's abduction never remember to mention that it was there at the time. But it was there, and we've got a photo of it, and we have not got a photo of what Alan saw on Burnley Road. FuturoHouse.com is a website dedicated to quirky futuristic homes, which features a section on the one at Todmorden, which it confirms was moved on a lorry. Malcolm Stroud said of it, the house was made by Waterside Plastics in its Waterside Mill, Rochdale Road, Todmorden. He also said it could have been a bus that he saw. Now, I personally feel that this is literally one of the dumbest explanations of any UFO sighting I think maybe ever. This doesn't explain Godfrey's missing time, it doesn't explain the flash of light, it also doesn't explain how a highly trained observer could make a mistake of a house or a bus being a flying saucer. For one, Godfrey said this thing was above the tree line, yet close enough to him that he could draw it. It had to have been in the air, which is exactly where Godfrey said it was in his original story. This doesn't account for the fact that he has memories of being abducted and somehow lost 15 minutes of time. How could that happen? He just blacks out and drives up the road a few hundred yards, and the fact that he saw a flying saucer was simply a coincidence and it had to have been a cheap mobile house? To be quite honest, I would find this theory to be insulting to my intelligence if I were Mr. Godfrey. I just can't put into words how ridiculous this theory is, and what's even worse is the home doesn't even look like the UFO. Seriously. Here is Godfrey's drawing of the Futura home side to side with the UFO. As you can see, there are some key differences. The first discrepancy being the shape of the craft, the second one being the craft's window design. I mean, they're both saucers, yes, But what about the vehicle being used to carry the home? Would there not have been engine noise? Would there not have been taillights? Also, the shape of the saucer that he saw and the Futura home are not exactly the same. His saucer looks more like a top. The Futura home is more like a perfect oval. As you can probably tell, there are some serious problems with this explanation. In my personal opinion, this solved absolutely nothing. So I am seriously stunned that news sites and Mr. Callahan are touting this theory as though it closes the case on this UFO encounter. They have literally zero way of knowing what Godfrey saw that night. They weren't there, and this sighting happened 37 years ago. Unless they found some sort of hard evidence that also explains away the faults that I pointed out in this explanation, then in my opinion, it still stands as a mystery encounter. Please let us know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you think this solves the case, or do you think this explanation is as horrible as I do? Alright, so moving on from there, I do have a UFO sighting I would like to share with you guys. The photos I'm showing you now were taken in 2007 by a man who goes by the pseudonym Keith Bradshaw. He took the pictures near the Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake in 2007, but has been too nervous to show anyone. That is, until now. Mr. Bradshaw apparently sneaked out to the desert after an old friend working on the Navy base told him about the mystery craft. He claims he heard a helicopter as he approached the base, before seeing the silver UFO with a number of military vehicles parked nearby. The UFO hunter, who took off his shirt for some reason to blend in with his surroundings, spent 10 minutes watching the flying saucer. He said this thing would wobble along close to the ground, very unstable, then it would freeze in position, go up to a certain height, sit there for a few minutes perfectly still. It made no noise that I could hear, and I don't believe anyone could have been riding on the inside, but I got the idea the helicopter was somehow remotely controlling it. It looked like whoever was controlling it was having fun with it sometimes, because they would do little tricks with it. He has since sent the images to be analyzed by some of the world's top UFO experts who are divided over their authenticity. British UFO sleuth Philip Mantle said this could turn out to be one of the most controversial UFO photo cases on record. The photo analyst contacted cannot come to an agreement about these photos. Are they fake or genuine? Who knows? Well, I think I know. To be honest, this thing looks like a Photoshop picture of two serving bowls placed on top of one another. The only thing about it that at all makes me curious is the shadow under the craft. Well, part of me thinks okay, the shadow may mean there was something there, but was that something what we're seeing in the photos? To be quite honest, I don't know for sure, but I can say that if it is an alien craft or a government craft, they could have picked a much better design for it. I mean, it seriously just looks like two literal dinner plates. I think if this guy did Photoshop this, then he took the term flying saucer a bit too literally. I won't say it's fake though, because there is always the off chance that I could be wrong, but to be quite honest, this one just doesn't sit well with me. And if it weren't getting so much attention from researchers and the media, I wouldn't touch these pictures with a 10-foot pole. Yet here I am because, well, it's what I do. Also, if this is a government craft or even an alien one, then I have a suggestion for you guys. Hire a new designer, because that thing looks more ridiculous than a Pontiac Aztec. No, seriously. Could you imagine the faces of the people confronted by this thing on the battlefield? They'd probably die of laughter before your craft could even fire off its photon lasers. Okay, well, enough of that for one video. That's all I have for you guys today, but make sure to stay tuned because there will be a lot more coming very soon. If you have some genuine UFO footage or pictures that you would like us to feature on the channel, then please send us an email and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Also, if you liked the video, then please browse the channel and don't forget to leave a like, a share, a comment with your theories on both of these stories, and most importantly of all, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. If you do, it really helps us out, and you'll get all of our new content sent straight to your inbox every time we upload a video, and you'll be able to stay up to date on the alien phenomenon. As always, disclosure is coming, and we will continue working towards the truth no matter what. This is Richard with Alien Bros, and I'll see you guys again next video.